Have you ever woken in the dead of night to what sounded like a giant inhale right outside your window? If you've experienced this phenomenon, then rest assured you aren't alone. For centuries, people have reported hearing the unsettling sound of houses breathing. But how is this possible? And why do certain homes seem to come alive after dark? Welcome to our channel, where today we're exploring one of the creepiest mysteries associated with some buildings. You might not believe us when we tell you that houses can breathe, but stick around until the end of this episode, and you may just change your mind. Some houses are alive. It may sound like the opening line to a spooky children's story, but for those who have experienced the unexplainable phenomena associated with certain buildings, it could be an all-too-real description of their living situation. Of course, this isn't to say that buildings come to life in the traditional sense. Instead, they exhibit characteristics that make them appear as though they're alive, such as creaking floors and doors that open and close on their own. But perhaps the most eerie sign that a building is somehow alive is when it begins to breathe. Hearing the air being sucked in through an open window during a gentle breeze is one thing. But what if the same sound seems to emanate from within the walls themselves? It's a terrifying thought to consider that the home you share with your family could be a sentient being with its own will and desires. But if you listen closely enough, you might begin to hear subtle noises that suggest there's more to your living space than meets the eye. If houses could breathe, then the air ducts must be the lungs that allow them to do so. However, despite the many similarities between human beings and buildings, there's no way that a home could literally inhale and exhale air, right? Well, it would certainly make for a fascinating discovery if it were true. Unfortunately, however, if you're hoping to hear the gentle rise and fall of your house as you drift off to sleep at night, then you'll likely be disappointed. While it is entirely possible to hear the sounds of air being pushed through vents or spaces in the walls, it's highly unlikely that these noises are being produced by the building itself. Instead, they're more likely the result of temperature fluctuations throughout the day. See, as the sun shines through windows and heats up different parts of the house, the air inside expands. This causes the air pressure to rise and forces the air to flow out through any cracks or openings it can find. At night, the temperature drops and the air inside contracts. As a result, the air pressure also decreases and causes air to be drawn in through those same cracks and openings. In other words, while houses can certainly breathe, they do so without conscious thought or control over the process. However, not all buildings behave in the same way. So while it has a perfectly reasonable explanation for why some houses seem to suck in and expel air at night, it doesn't account for every strange phenomenon that has been witnessed. To truly understand why some buildings breathe in and breathe out, we need to look at the world's most famous example of a breathing house. In 1986, The Guardian reported on a house in North London that was said to be haunted by the ghost of a woman who died under mysterious circumstances. One evening, the occupants of the house heard a knock, and when they opened the door, they found no one outside. They closed the door, but soon afterwards, they heard another knock. The noise came from within the wall. As they stood there listening, they heard what sounded like heavy footsteps dragging themselves closer and closer along the hallway. Then, just as suddenly as they had begun, the footsteps stopped. Not long after that, the sounds of dragging chains and what sounded like screams were heard coming from beneath the floorboards. And as if that wasn't enough, a cold breeze began to flow through the room. While this particular story could easily be dismissed as an example of poltergeist activity, there's another potential explanation. Sometimes the reason a house seems to breathe is because it's actually responding to external factors. Like wind, for instance, can cause the walls of a building to expand and contract, which creates a sucking sound as the air rushes back and forth between the spaces and the walls. However, this is only half the story because there are instances of houses inhaling and exhaling, even when there's no wind. And that's when things start to get really interesting. For example, take the case of a house in Massachusetts that was built in 1784. One night the residents were awoken by what sounded like someone breathing heavily in the basement. They investigated but found nothing out of the ordinary. Afterwards, similar sounds were recorded by paranormal investigators using specialized equipment. What makes this case particularly intriguing is that the house did not seem to react to changes in temperature or barometric pressure, which rules out simple explanations like air rushing through cracks and openings. It's unclear whether these examples of unexplained house breathing are caused by actual ghosts or some other phenomenon altogether. Some experts believe that they could be the result of electromagnetic fields generated by underground pipes or wiring. Others believe that they could be caused by animals nesting in the walls. Still, others believe that they could be the result of something more sinister. There's an unsettling notion that some houses feed on the energy of those who live inside them, and the sound of heavy breathing could be a sign that they're becoming agitated or hungry. It's not a popular belief, but it's one that has been around for centuries. Ancient Rome was said to be full of houses that fed on the blood of their inhabitants, and there are similar stories from other cultures around the world. Could these stories be based on actual events, or are they simply the product of an overactive imagination? Now, let's delve into some theories about why some houses might seem to breathe at night. Firstly, houses can expand and contract due to temperature fluctuations throughout the day. As the sun shines through windows and heats up different parts of the house, the air inside expands, causing the air pressure to rise and forcing the air to flow out through any cracks or openings. At night, the temperature drops, the air inside contracts, and the air pressure decreases, causing air to be drawn in through the same cracks and openings. This phenomenon is known as thermal breathing and can create a sucking sound as the air moves in and out of the house. Additionally, wind can cause the walls of a building to expand and contract, creating a sucking sound as the air rushes back and forth between the spaces in the walls. This is known as wind-induced breathing and is particularly noticeable in older buildings with large gaps between the walls and windows. Another theory suggests that houses can respond to external factors such as changes in barometric pressure and seismic activity. For example, a drop in barometric pressure can cause the air inside a house to expand, forcing it to flow out through cracks and openings. Similarly, seismic activity can cause vibrations that lead to the movement of air within a house. These external factors can create a range of sounds from gentle sighs to loud groans, depending on the severity and frequency of the changes. It's important to note that these theories are not mutually exclusive, and multiple factors can contribute to a house's breathing sounds. For example, changes in temperature and wind could both create sucking sounds, as they cause the house to expand and contract. Additionally, external factors such as barometric pressure and seismic activity can also play a role in creating these sounds. So if you ever at home at night and hear what sounds like heavy breathing coming from the walls, don't be too alarmed. It could simply be the result of thermal breathing caused by temperature fluctuations throughout the day. Just be sure to check for any drafts or gaps in the windows and doors, as this can be an indication of more serious issues such as mold growth or insulation problems. On the other hand, if you notice that the sounds are more intense or frequent, then it might be worth consulting a professional to investigate further. After all, there is no harm in being cautious when it comes to the health and safety of your home and loved ones. And with that chilling thought in mind, we're now going to put down the ghost hunting gear and pick up the paranormal investigation tools. Because if you think the idea of a hungry house is scary, wait until you hear about the even more terrifying possibility that your home may be infested with flesh-eating termites. To learn more about these creepy crawlies and how to protect your property from their voracious appetites, be sure to check out our previous episode. See you next time.